Hello, my fellow YouTubers. This is Roy back again. Isn't that beautiful? We're back. Had to do a video. And we're going to touch on a couple things tonight. We're going to go over a couple. We'll start off with what you're looking at. You got some bottles. You got some grounding pipes. You got edge wheel. You got 2 PMHs, some compasses. You got the black box here in front of the wheel. Got battery, oscilloscope. PMH hanging, just hanging. Along with a nice spring with a hook. We also have 2 Bifiler coils here. Got some speaker wire, made a Bifiler. If you want me to post a video on how to make those, just ask, leave your comments, and I will show you how to make them. Took me a few times, but yeah, once I got it down. So these are wound in opposite directions. They are hooked up to 2 coils that I made up here. They're both the same, exactly identical wires and length of wire. And one is wound one direction and one is wound the other. They are both facing true north. So if you look on that wall right there, you will see I got it written down north. Why? Because the compass is true north that way. And there's the compass. And there's the north. Okay? There's your true north. Over here, this is facing true north as well. And this one's lined up true north. With the compass, we're getting reflection from the magnets in front of it. But the actual arrow you see there is facing north. And that's the same here. So for starters, you can already see in alignment on different places of the wheel, because each magnet is representing north and south. So you know that the yellow facing magnets are south pole and the black are north pole. And you can see that there's movement in the compasses, both of them. As well as I got the PMH here tied together where the 2 starts are tied together, and then the 2 ends are tied together. And that's creating a north and south pole into the iron core when it's induced from the outside. And these 2 coils here are a 16 gauge wire wound opposite directions. So the pole in front of the iron naturally would be the pole that we were looking to generate at the end of this PMH. Now the key thing with that alignment, let's go to, I gotta go this back side of the sign. So the key part of that alignment, we're gonna look at nature. And with looking at nature, I have some notes up here that I wrote a long time ago that cyclones, hurricanes, blow counterclockwise. Air near the ground is pushed up towards the low pressure center as it cools down. So here it shows, I made a note that what do we got? Let me see here. I'm missing part of this. Here's what am I missing? Forget about it. I gotta turn this up here and notes will pop up. There you go. So this is what we're referencing right here with why they're wound different ways, okay? So winds in a cyclone blow counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere, clockwise in the southern hemisphere. So very important with your coils. So if you want to have the front facing of your coil to be a north or south, you would just go to this here and say, okay, I want counterclockwise because I want a north pole. And if I go clockwise, I'll get a south pole. So here, in the winding of these coils, this here goes clockwise and it makes a south pole. And then, let me see here. Let me verify that because, let me see. So this is turning clockwise. So no, to produce a north pole, I started off turning clockwise. To make a south pole, I started off going counterclockwise. So if you want the front of your coil, because if you start wherever you start, you'll know your wires are at the back. So there's the back. The front would be, just the ends. So if you want that end to be a natural south pole and north pole, this would be going clockwise and this is going counterclockwise to make south. It's very important. It took a long time for me to understand that, but it's part of the process. There's no mistakes. It's part of the process. So you got why you would wind your coils, and it's facing away from you. If you put the coil in front of you, a cylinder coil, face it away from you, it's the ends that are on the outside we're talking about. Excuse me. Now, referencing winds in the cyclone blowing, it's running the same as the current that's in the coil. So the important thing to know when you're winding these coils and what's happening on each coil is that in a hurricane which is known as cyclones, are generating a pressure, and in your counterclock in your northern hemisphere and your clockwise in your southern hemisphere, you'll see that in counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere, that the air near the ground is pushed up. They're very important. And it's pushed up to the low pressure center as it cools. And it creates a vacuum. And that's very important because the coils, in a similar sense, create a pressure. And where do you want that pressure? Inward or outward? So you can use nature. Leave your comments on that part. Here we have a combination of a lot of experiments, and we're not doing those tonight. I don't really have time. I'm getting hit in the head with my chains here, which have been hanging in certain directions, and I do different tests with the chains. One is the material the chain's made out of and how they loop, and how positive and negative can live in one loop. Very important, and a whole another topic. Then the PMH with the hanging hook is a whole nother topic. You see the chain from there. And then also the the pancake coils, we'll call them, they're bifilers, and you tie the center of them together and you pound each wire on the outside with a out of phase same frequency, and you create a scalar wave. And by doing experiments in the scalar wave here is what got me really excited going back into Ed Leedskalnin's project, is because in the simplest of form, Ed is showing us that your electromagnetic waves are a fundamental right to electricity, but the backroom knowledge of what happens and transpires the next level of energy past that is outside the room for the masses of the peeps. So what I'm getting at is when you get into scalar waves, you are now dealing with the energy that Tesla was referencing back to his car experiment, to where he was able to have somebody, obviously in New York in his one laboratory, and he was able to go up to in New York City, and then he was able to go up to Buffalo, New York with his nephew, and he was in a Pace Arrow car. I believe that it was converted to electric motor and one car battery, and the car battery wasn't to run the electric motor. It was to activate the system. And he had tapped into scalar waves at that point, because I'll explain to you what scalar waves are. They're not just electromagnetic propagating waves. They are the next level up before you, but the next level up before you understand this. You got to understand there's an energy source that penetrates everything that we know, and that is the scalar wave. It's pretty universal to mankind because our DNA is a radioactive tuner to scalar waves, and our system in our body, straight down your spinal cord, is split in two different fashions, and left side of the brain and right side of the brain are controlling two sides of a body that is literally doing what we're going to talk about here in scalar waves, on how to produce them and how to understand what they are, that they are in the center of our body that's putting out a wave on both sides. That's scalar, and that scalar is the tuning fork for everything, for the whole energy source of everything. We're tuned in. We are that source. We're just mini little tuners, and we can tap into that. And these scalar waves are, let me put this back over here so I can show something else. Sorry to be so, I guess I would call it disorganized, but I'm trying to give a little bit of everything into this video so I could go eat some dinner. So in reference to scalar waves, so I wrote some notes here, and there's page 1 if you want to snapshot it. There's page 2 if you want to snapshot it. I'm pretty sure it's legible. You can read it. But we'll start off with this first page, and I'll read them off. Scalar waves are produced when two electromagnetic waves are the same frequency, are exactly the opposite phase of each other. The result is exactly a inhalation of magnetic fields, but a not only inhalation of magnetic fields, because it's inhaling the magnetic field, we call that canceling out. But it's not only doing that, but it's a transformation of energy back into a scalar wave. The scalar waves can be created by wrapping electrical wires around a figure 8 in the shape of a Mobius coil, they call it. When an electric current flows through the wires in opposite direction, the opposing electromagnetic fields from the two wires cancel each other and create a scalar wave. And I'm a fond believer of the cells in our body and the pH and the well health of humans on when their metabolism slows down and how you start to age and your body changes only because of this in your metabolism. The DNA looks like a series of Mobius coils. These Mobius coils, DNA, are able to generate scalar waves. Most cells in the body contain thousands of these Mobius coils. Very important here. Scalar waves. Scalar waves differ from conventional electromagnetic transverse waves by having two oscillating anti-parallel with each other, each originating from opposite charge sources. Very key. Can't take one source and split it, thereby lacking any net directionality. The waves are conjugates of each other, and so, if left undisturbed, can pass through ordinary matter with relative ease. And that's why we're here with Ed Leedskalnin. That's why at this time frame, when this was all done with Tesla, only a few people picked up on the next level of energy. You can make scalar waves with a bifiler coil, one wound with a pair of wires instead of a single wire, and pushing opposing currents through the wires. Join the ends together if you want to do this experiment. So these bifilers, I've never really thought of those as scalar waves with the Tesla. If you look at Tesla's patent, I don't think it says anything about that. It just talks about electromagnetic radio waves propagating and wireless energy. And I think Tesla, in unison with every patent he has, that really it's all one big patent, and all of them together make the separate components to facilitate something with electromagnetic into scalar waves through the human body. If you look at that big coil with Tesla sitting in front of it, and he said at that point he had tapped into the nature's frequency, and I believe that big coil and it being a bifiler is where he tapped into that. And briefly here, I want to show you where we're starting off with no experiments tonight, but this is a pickup coil. Now this pickup coil, I decided to split it. So there's two, it's not both moved together like how I always had it. So now it's split. So when you pass this, if you put a DC charge in here, these become electromagnetic. They got two nice iron studs in front. And my bottles are tipping. These are definitely important in discussion as well. So this is my pilot driver. This starts the whole system. So pretty much every time this north passes, these are both south, okay? So I have these coils wound to where it's making a south pole in the front. And what'll happen is when the north pole approaches the south, it'll go ahead and pull this up and it'll decrease the contact in the back. You can see the contact. And then when this is south and this is south, it's going to push back. So it's going to make the contact in the back. Now we have another set of coils that are going to be on the inside here. So that's the pilot coil. And then here would be the electromagnetic coil, which these bolts here, there'll be 2 coils there on the contact. It'll contact and make electromagnetic field. This is where the chains will be coming out. And we're going to do some experiments with the chains and show you, if you look in Ed's picture, that there's the chains are bound up. That's a bound up chain. So is that one bound up. And we're going to show how you get a chain bound up, what it takes to bound up a chain in the experiment. Because I need to go through all these experiments with you guys so you can understand the velocity of this whole project. That's a bound up chain with the hook under here. So here we have a hook. There we have a PMH. We're going to encapsulate, we're going to wrap cables around the PMH, encapsulate the keeper bar underneath it, and trap the energy inside of it. Then we're going to play a little bit with the energy on the outside through sound. One thing I want you guys to notice is I want to show you a little bit about tuning forks. That's Ed's specifications. 1.5 inch square stock, 12 inches tall on both sides. And you're asking me, Roy, are you nuts? Yes, sound has a lot to do here. There's a lot of an acoustic. It's a transformation Ed figured out. That's why he's smiling in his picture. If you look at him, my boy, I'm going to give a shout out to my boy Tommy out there. Love you, Tommy. He's basically smiling when he's looking over here. And you can see that this ain't just a regular electromagnetic. He's got the chains coming off the back side of the black box. And they're coming up and wrapping around and connected to more iron than they can. And then they're all obviously magnetic, a DC current. That's what we're looking at. And we're looking at an AC current with the wheel. So if you look at the compasses here, you'll see there's a linear lines of different parts of north and south. Even though these are both facing north on the arrows, you can see the energy is different. So you got your AC changing. And I want to show you on the oscilloscope. We're going to go ahead and you can see the oscilloscope, and I'm going to turn the wheel, and you can see we actually have a heartbeat. So on the oscilloscope, you can see the AC wave of me turning, and you can see the wheel turning. The PMH is hooked up to the oscilloscope. The oscilloscope is showing us the wave front. The wave front is what the PMH is describing to us. And what we will be having is the front. It don't have to move this fast, by the way. That is super fast. This will be the pilot. The pilot will be controlling 2 things: electromagnetic wave and also magnets. It's going to be split at this point. Over here we have the electromagnetic wave, which is the electromagnetic wave will be the relay up here. The relay will be kicked on and off. It will put 26 volts into the PMH. The PMH will have 26 volts of current going into it. The PMH will be wound as a bifiler. So on every different stroke of the PMH, this is phenomenal for me. The reason I split the PMH, the pilot, is that it will now make a contact and it'll reverse the poles in the PMH. So the PMH, when this south pole is entering this south pole, this PMH will flip this pole to now be a north, and this will be the south, so it'll be pulling. Same thing here. This will be south, this will be north. So what we're going to have is conjuency between the iron, the magnets, and the iron, and the electromagnetic field will make a direct connect lock in between the opposite poles. In doing so, you're going to have electromagnetic currents in the iron through the back of the PMH going down into the ground. Not tonight. We're not going to talk about that tonight, but it is connecting earth ground in two different places, one there and one there. In these two different places, at every particular time, a moment of time, one side is positive, one side is negative at the bottom. So it's making a electrostatic burst into the ground through the coil system that would be lined up inside this canister. If you look at Ed Leedskalnin's magnetic current, he talks about making currents, but then he also talks about you're losing half the energy. And then he mentions, what if you were put that into a cylinder and connect the two ends together? At the end of the poles between the core and the outside casing, you'd have two opposite poles. And this is what we're talking about. So we're going to be flipping to where we're vibrating the ground. Okay? So the material in the ground itself, regardless of what it is, you're going to have it being excited through electrostatic blasts from the capacitors that are sitting on top, that are taking a constant charge and storing it in the electrocapacitors. And every time the charge of the relay goes off from the pilot to the relay to the electromagnetic, which we didn't even talk about that, where that fits in the system, it will release the capacitors. It'll put electrostatic charge to the ground, and that's how we're going to attack to the ground, because that's how the ground reacts. It's through electrostatics. Clouds, everything shows us in nature. So from the magnet part of the connection here with the extra set of coils, you're going to have a magnetic field that's going to come around, and it's going to go and connect to my other pipe I have there, which is connected down the ground as a third ground. This ground is in Ed's picture here, to where you see the pipe coming up, and there's a dual capacitor condenser on top there, one behind the other. You got all the pipes. You got the iron up top. You got, these are all bound up, all the chains. The chains come from the back of that black box, which is what he's doing. He's taking he's creating. In the beginning of the creation, he's making a pilot. From the back of the pilot, he's making a contact. The contact comes back to these contacts here, which can control a certain current to make the first situation happen. We can adjust the speed of the wheel by just moving the box a little bit left, a little bit back. It's sort of like a old distributor in a car, to where you advance forward or you advance it back. You can retard it or advance it. And by doing so, you can make the speed change on the wheel. We're looking to tap into the Schumann resonance, about 7.9 to about 30 to 40. We see during equinoxes the frequency of the Schumann resonance bounces up 26, 30, and even up to 40. So we want to look in that area. We're going to have a lot of videos going here. So the electromagnetics coming back out of that pilot relay, and it's energizing the magnets into all the iron. So all the iron that's above it will be working off of that other third pipe, which is connected down to the ground. And it's also a magnetic field that's coming back around and going back down to the top handle here. If you want to look at this whole apparatus, that it's sort of a atom, like an atom is. It's got its electrons running around, and it's also got its proton and its neutron in the center. So if you want to look at the wheel itself, all the movement around the outside, it being AC, you can imagine it to be like an atom, to where these atom electrons on the outside are really bound by the protons and neutrons that are in the center. So then you ask yourself, well, how do you look at what's driving it in the middle, the proton and the neutron? Well, you got to look at sunlight. You got to look at, he mentions a sunlight. And when he look in magnetic current, where he talks about sunlight, I believe he's talking about having a beam of sunlight where it comes down, and you're using the proton and neutron off the sunlight, and you're creating the electrons around it, and you're creating a electromagnetic kinetic machine that it's going to have all the conjugates to, may not sound right, the word I just said, but it's all the components that it takes for the earth to be responding back and creating this energy into scalar waves. Now, as simple as this whole thing seems, Ed realized that the scalar waves would go through anything. So if you were to take these two pancake coils, which we'll do an experiment, and we'll find, we'll take the two signal generators there, and we'll pound each one of these, same frequency with a different current. And we'll see what happens to core rock or any other object in between it. At that point, I haven't had the luck yet to tune into any object. But with the scalar wave that's able to penetrate through the material, you would think that all you have to do is tune into a harmonic of something. So if the frequency was almost in above gamma ray, I would say, because gamma ray would be pure source energy, I would assume it would be, and then you would slow it down. As you slow it down, you would get to a point to where that pure source is able to catch on to what you're doing. And when you get to that point where there's some recognition of fusion into frequency, at that point there's got to be a multiplication of something that's a harmonic of a frequency that we know of here, and that we're able to tap into that and be able to levitate stones and be able to anything that's on the element chart as of we know it. The scalar waves is able to tap right into each one and rattle its cage. Whether it's rattling the cage or it's tuning to the cage, I rather think it's tuning. All right, so you got the electromagnetic coming back off the back of the pilot. It goes to the grounding system over here, which is a third grounding to the two oscillating grounds. And we're teasing the earth in a sense by throwing electrostatics, changing electrostatic pulses from up and below. We're also taking electromagnetic, which is in two places in Earth. It's the field that's from the ground surface, up above. It's the reaction of the element itself to the energy itself that's already moving around the element, and we look at that as a solid mass or gas or liquid But in reality, there's an energy moving around it that we don't even focus on. And it's the energy we're talking about in the scalar wave realm of thinking of energy. So you're way above electromagnetic. There's no propagation. There's none of that. It's instant contact to everything. And that's where Tesla in his Aeropace car was able to go up New York, start the car with the 12-volt battery motor, and he was able to disengage from it. It ran the windows, the lights, and the wipers, whatever, but he was able to disengage from it and use the pure scalar waves to run an electric motor. We're going to talk about that. You guys leave your comments. Hopefully you appreciate my babble, but I know you didn't think it's babble. Let's get the heartbeat going here, and you can see it over. It wasn't babble. It's good stuff, and it's a lot of knowledge of 8 years of learning about different people, knowing nothing about electric, all compiled in one little video here of what we're brushing on. So each experiment here is ones that I've done, and I know the outcome, and I need to go through all this with you because this journey has been a rabbit hole, but a good rabbit hole, because it ain't a rabbit hole of getting lost and not knowing where you're going. It's more of having to learn a little about everything different in order to figure out, as simple as Ed's system here is what he's trying to show us in reference to ground and magnets and starting the process. But it's so simple, but it seems to be that it got complicated through time. You guys leave your comments. Hopefully you enjoy the video. Going to be good ones coming up soon. I'll have some time to get in here and we'll do individual experiments with the scalar waves, the sound, the electrostatic collection, the separation of electromagnetic, taking magnets and bringing them back into the system. So we have a closed loop circuit with the electromagnetic and also with the combination of AC and DC, and using the wheel itself to be the AC, the ground being the DC. There's a lot here, so hopefully you enjoy. And this box is phenomenal. You can see how I made little flippers in it, and when it's turned on, it flips back and forth per pole. It activates this nice old-fashioned relay that I have that'll connect the battery to the PMH. The PMH will have a back EMF on it, and it's going to be a bifiler as well, so it changes its poles in between, and then it's going to have a back EMF every time it's yinging, it's yanging. That'll be collection in the capacitors, which will split the current into from AC into DC, because it'll go in the capacitors and we'll be splitting the charge. When the charge is split, it's pissed off. It don't like to be split up. So you'll have a good high pressure. We'll take that high pressure and we'll exert it into the ground. The ground will have a high pressure and low pressure as well, because one of these will be high as the bottom will be low. The other one will be low as the other one's high. And we're going to have a nice rhythmic clock. And we're going to be tuning this in to the Schumann. So whenever that wave is flowing, we're going to be balancing right on the right line. And that's what I want to explain to you guys when we're dealing with here with North Pole. We're in some of the experiments, we'll be showing the position of the wheel with the 24 poles and how the position is different. Like right now there, you're showing north, but you're showing, the white arrow facing this way. Over here, you're showing the white arrow facing this way. So what you have is a slice. And if that's north and behind me south, there's a slice going between that. That's where these coils come in, because we're able to adjust these. Not only we're able to adjust them, we're able to get electromagnetic field in between them, because they're both facing the opposite way. So if they're both facing the opposite way and their stream is running this way, okay, north and south, okay? So basically in each one of these coils, as soon as the energy hits the coil, it turns in from electromagnetic, which is the back here, into electric, and it gets through the copper and it turns into electric. When it turns to electric, it makes a little electric magnetic field. In between that two coils here, we'll have a field in between it, and you can tune in there. When you tune in there, you're able to now take the system and you can tweak it. It's all about variables. That's one thing Tesla has taught me. Ooh, thank God Tesla was there, because if anything, you got to tweak everything. You got to be able to adjust it. You got to be able to move stuff and just get it dialed in. And we're dialing the Schumann. We're going to make a system here that pretty much Ed is trying to show us and laughing in his picture, to where he knows it's as simple as it is. The mainstream will not allow it. Leave your comments. Peace out. Love you all. Stay safe.